Here we go. So good morning and welcome. Today is April 5th. Happy Golden Rule Day, everybody. On Facebook and social media, there is a Golden Rule campaign that's going. It's if you have gotten the newsletter from the Charter for Compassion, this is a 24-hour around the world experience where people all over the world, starting in Australia, or I beg your pardon, Japan, Australia, going all about the world, India. Namrata's got a video that's going to be playing in noon at, and today is also the new moon.
Oh, good. I thought that. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rosh Hadesh. And then, and so at any rate, go back to Facebook or wherever you get your social media and check out Golden Rule Day or goldenruleday.com and see all the amazing people. This is a big partnership venture with the Charter for Compassion. And there's Karen. And I was just mentioning, Karen, hi, good morning. Karen, I was just talking about Golden Rule Day and that it's going on.
I've just been helping with it.
Now you are. I'm totally impressed that you're here. I can't believe it. You must have some of your other 6 arms on computers right now.
I'm just so excited about what's going on with you too. So I just wanted to, and everybody, thank you so much, everybody, for all that everybody's doing. It's just incredible what's happening on our planet right now. I'm so grateful.
Well, you know, hey, Clay.
Yeah, on Golden Rule Day, I learned at the News Story Festival here in Austin this last weekend that the San Antonio, Compassionate San Antonio is working to light up the city skyline gold tonight.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, that's all I know about it, but it sounds pretty fantastic.
Well, wait, that speaks volumes about where we're going, that it's being acknowledged in that way. Oh, that is really, really beautiful. As a matter of fact, Musi Helu, who is the U.S. ambassador, the ambassador, he's actually from Ethiopia. I don't know why I said U.S., but he's the United Nations ambassador of the Golden Rule. And he actually went city to city trying to get mayors to adopt their cities as a Golden Rule city. And I know that Gard Jameson, who actually is a board member of the Charter for Compassion now, was very instrumental in making Las Vegas a city of compassion, and also creating license plates through the state where you can, vanity plates where you can pick a particular plate that you give a little bit of extra money every month, and it's dedicated to the Golden Rule. So it's Golden Rule license plates. So when you give money, that money goes back into creating a Golden Rule environment in Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, the image, and I'll just take 1 second and tell you this, it's very important for this audience, that the image that actually his daughter helped create is an image of a woman helping a man. They're 2 hikers climbing a boulder, and the woman's reaching down to help the man up. I mean, you can't really tell it's her silhouette, but if you look closely, and he always points it out, it is a woman that is helping a man up the hill. So we know it takes both of us to sling us forward. So I'm sure he would have jumped on the other side. But anyway, Namrata, did you get my last minute request here? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, I did. I responded saying I'm good with it.
Okay, great. Again, this is the story of my week. So we're going to start with a centering that Namrata is going to lead us in.
Okay. So I invite us all to close our eyes, sit comfortably. Take a deep breath. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Visualize a golden light in your heart center. And now know that It steps out of you, in front of you, and takes the shape of a bonfire, which is turning violet in color. The bonfire grows higher and higher, up to 9 feet, and wider up to about 6 feet, and has a cooling energy. Now take a moment to step into this violet fire. And as we do that, we hold each other's hands in a circle so that the violet flame transmutes all negativity, all judgments, and anything that may get into our way today. As we do this, we invoke the blessings of Saint Germain, who gave us this meditation, and embody the flame with the words, I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity life desires. With that, take a deep breath. And we all now step outside of the bonfire, which slowly assimilates inside of us, protecting us from any harm and blessing us for our new purpose. Slowly open your eyes. Come back to the present moment. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you, Namrata. That was truly beautiful. Okay, let's take just a moment. I always have a hard time moving after that. So I just want to thank you again, Namrata, and let's move forward. So in the spirit of the fire, let's move forward. And if we could just give an ever brief introduction to who we are, because we want to get around to hearing from Sara, because I have a feeling she could fill our time together this morning really gracefully. I want to hear a lot that she has to offer. So if we can all take just who you are, where you are, and just a sentence or two about like the top 2 things that you're most passionate about in this work of compassion in women and girls. So let's see, Nancy, let's go with you.
Okay, hey, I am very very compassionate and passionate today. Yeah, Nancy Gales, I'm in New York City, right outside on the beach, Bell Harbor. What's really exciting today for women and girls, and the rest of us really, is HR 6199, a bill that was just introduced by Senator Wolarski, Kind, and Chang. LaHood also. But what's great about this is that it is reversing what happened with Obamacare about health savings accounts. They had a restriction on using your health savings account or your flex spend account on any over-the-counter medication. So in other words, if you wanted to go get a homeopathic product, for example, or even Tylenol or anything, you would have to go to your medical doctor, have a meeting, have an office visit, get a prescription for that in order to take it from your health savings account. So it was very restrictive. So of course nobody used it. So these women, and she's the co-chair of the Integrative Health Policy Consortium that I'm a member of, our caucus on integrative health and wellness. So they introduced this bill, but what's great is now you can go get your over-the-counter medication and take it as a deduction from your health savings account and flex spend account. The best other part of it is you can also menstrual products for women. So it's introducing feminine hygiene as self-care. So it doesn't have to rise to the occasion of being a condition or a disease or anything like that you're treating, but you can use pads, tampons, cups, liners, any type of feminine hygiene product can be deducted from your health savings account or flex spend accounts, which is really good for the high deductible plans, right? And those type of things. But mostly what I love about it is that it's fomenting in the mind of the legislators and Congress, of course, that self-care is healthcare.
Nancy, you were on the committee that you were a part of the Integrative Healthcare Consortium or whatever you call it.
Served on that for 12 years now. I'm a member of that.
Okay.
Yes. And
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say thank you and if you can send that to me, I can distribute all the details on that.
Yes, I think I just did send it to you.
Oh,
and
okay.
Send you the other thing that I'll just say briefly is JAMA just came out with a new idea of what healthcare should look like, including flourishing. And flourishing, again, as an idea of healthcare, and they have a flourishing index for it. So it's not just we remove symptoms and that means you're good to go, but they are introducing the idea within the medical circles about what does well-being and health really look like. So that's for the healthcare sector, I know, but in terms of women and girls, they often do use well-being. They used to use well-being as nothing. So what, you feel good, that kind of thing. So it's really a big movement. I'm really excited about it. And just saying, that's what I'm excited about today.
So there you have Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. That is some great news. Hi, Brenda. We're going around and we're taking just
I know, I've been on the call.
Oh, you just popped in. I'm sorry, we didn't see you. Hi there. Okay. Clay.
Yes.
Tell us.
I'll be very brief. I'm working on two things. One, I'm calling Circles of Men project, which is collecting and creating a space for thought leaders in the area of men and spirituality to come together around the world. I'm working on an initiative proposal right now for the charter, and Sandy is helping me with that. And so that's moving on. The other item is that I'm deeply involved with an organization called Gender Equity and Reconciliation International. Fantastic folks up in Seattle, and they've got a lot of things going in that arena.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I can speak for probably all the women on this call that we appreciate it. And on behalf of all humanity, thank you, Clay. Namrata. And Clay's in Texas, by the way.
Yeah. Awesome.
I don't know if you said that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Namrata, thank you for that beautiful blessing of opening, centering.
Sure. So just a quick introduction of my personal vision is to awaken and galvanize the feminine spirit for a planetary transformation of consciousness. And that's something I've been working towards for the last 2 years. I have been studying about all these areas of feminism, of compassion now, and climate change. And this year my focus is to really spread the word, to go out and talk more about it, and also to experiment with ways in which we can make changes happen. You'll be interested to know, Clay, I've recently pulled together a group of men to initiate a circle of men, which I have never done before. And I was wondering if I could connect with you to discuss that a little further to see, how we might want to take that forward. The Golden Rule Day work has been going on great. And I think I did give the update on the happiness circles on our last call. So I will skip that. I'm headed to Finhon later this month to present on my research topic. And also to the Mind and Life Institute in June in Garrison, New York, to talk about, again, my research relating to the systems view of life. I'm really looking forward to listening to what you do, Sara. I looked up your website and can't wait to hear more. Thank you.
I think we all can. Thank you so much. And Namrata is also our bridge to the environment sector of the Charter for Compassion too, and bringing us information. And also, just because I know we're going to get it, I'm just going to make a little announcement that if anybody is interested in being a volunteer with the environmental sector, that please don't leave us. But if it serves you your highest good, they're looking for good volunteers. So I promised I would make that announcement. Now it's recorded. Kate Trinket can hear that I actually did ask. Okay, so Karen.
Hi everybody. I'm Karen Palmer. I'm in Southern California in a little town called Solvang, and we are working toward becoming the first compassionate and world kindness city. I am helping people to find their authentic voice so they can share it globally. I'm the founder of Global Kindness Going Viral and the Puppy Love Revolution, and I have found a way to use my voice to help the voiceless. So right now I'm very excited about helping to make hashtag Golden Rule Day every day, and we're using that hashtag on everything, on every post, every tweet, everything that we're using. Let's see it trend. I'm going to actually be working with the Golden Rule Project. I'm an online talk show host, so I'm going to be doing a lot of work with Golden Rule Day to help it become an everyday household name.
Ooh, thank you so much. Hashtag Golden Rule every day, and also the Charter for Compassion is got a campaign right now. Hashtag This Is Compassion. You can do them both actually.
Yes.
And
yes.
The idea is to go out and use your phone or your camera, what have you, and capture compassion happening, or videotape yourself, talking about compassion or what have you. And there's actually a contest. There's actually a prize to be won. That prize is a trip for two to Mexico to the 10-year anniversary of the Charter for Compassion, and it's happening in Mexico City. And I don't know what else is involved, but it's a round-trip ticket for two and whatever else, I'm not sure, to go to Mexico. So anyway, so I just wanted to plug that in there too. Thank you so much. Greta's on the phone on her way to Los Angeles to go to work. So thank you for being with us. I hope you can speak and drive safely.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, what an amazing group of ladies you are. So I'm fascinated by it. I have a new passion. I just found this new passion, and I'm extremely interested in helping women. I'm interested in working in women's rights, specifically in Saudi Arabia. I have no idea why I have that interest, but I do. And I want to help, if I can, in any way, shape, or form, help these women to find their voice and to find their freedom and to find the right to live with dignity and freedom. So I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm just kind of exploring territory. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Did you say prison? Is that what you said? Did you say?
No, prison?
I thought I heard you wanted to work in the prison.
Freedom.
Okay.
To live with freedom?
Freedom. Okay, sorry. I thought, well, I could take you up. We're neighbors, so I thought, well, I can take you up to the California Institute of Women, but that's not what you said. So, okay. All right. Well, let's talk, because I might be able to make some connections for you and have some ideas about who might be able to guide you and direct you or provide you kind of an outlet for that, perhaps, or at least the start. Thanks so much, Greta. Drive carefully.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Brenda, hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll just go really quick. I'm really happy about Golden Rule Day today. I was going to be introducing it to the Waldorf School today because we were doing a dedication of our peace posts that they've been painting. So they got their peace posts done, and they're going to be placing it, they're dedicating it as their legacy to the kids that will follow them, their school. So it's been a great project. It's getting changed to May because we're expecting a lot of rain today. So so they changed that. So the Golden Rule Day, I'll just be sharing with a few people. I feel that's a really great message, and I really appreciate what is happening there. And then back to water, we're working on the water group, and so we have the water charter survey, and then I just put in there also that the elders at the Kumbh Mela, I'll put it in the chat, I did a connect there, came out with a declaration for water, and so that's a really great whole new thing that's just adding to all of us protecting our waters, and also raising awareness really about what does water mean to us, and how do we look at our relationship to it, and I feel how we participate with it, because there's many things that we can do that a lot of people don't realize that we can do to clean our waters and to care for our planet, and to bring water into areas that it isn't. So I think that's important. Other than that, we're working on a symposium at the end of this month, which is the Compassionate Living and Dying Symposium. And so I'm getting together with some women earlier this month a couple of times, and we'll be doing trauma release. And we do this in a very beautiful way. And when we do the release, we release it for generations to come. And then that'll be ended at the very end of the month with me introducing to whoever's at the symposium a easeful way of letting go of trauma every day in your life. So I have the opportunity to do that. So I'll be done for now.
Thank you, Brenda. You reminded me, said this before on previous calls, but if you haven't heard it or haven't done it yet, we're in addition to all the great work that's being done through, and awareness being done through the water charter, the water declaration that Brenda mentioned. There's a small group of women who have come together and are asking the world about their relationship with water, and committed to creating a charter for water, a water charter that can be used perhaps in a similar fashion as the Charter for Compassion. There's no intention of where it's going to go. We're leaving that up to the global community. So we're crowdsourcing at the same time. We're inviting people to ask themselves, what is their relationship with water, and an opportunity to contribute to the survey. So you can find the survey. The easiest way to do it is just send you to this website, and it's right on the homepage. It's hosted by this organization, which is mine, full disclosure, but it is actually not owned by us. I'm just hosting it, as are some of the rest of us are hosting it, which you can host it too if you like, and go get the link and put it on your site. So, but it's an opportunity to invite the world to tell us, what do you want to see in the Charter for Water? So anyway, enough about that. Isn't that lovely?
Oh, sorry. I know we're trying to move forward so we can listen to Sara, sorry. And so looking forward to that. One last thing, I had a great opportunity to visit with Marianne Williamson, who's running for president, and on Saturday night. And I was guided to go talk with her, which I normally wouldn't do. But the reason I did was, and I was guided to wear my Charter for Compassion pin right on my scarf and all. I was like, why? I was getting ready. I'm like, why am I feeling to do this? But I listened. So I did, and so I ended up getting my picture taken, but mainly talking with her. And the purpose was to share Pam's Safe Cities work that she's implemented in India. And so they gave permission for us to spread the word of that. And so I'll be sending that to Marianne and also linking her with some of the professors here in women's studies at CSUS University. I've become friends with a couple professors over there in women's studies.
Great. That's great. I think that's wonderful. Let's see if she'll embrace making United States a country of compassion in a little, when she becomes president, or if she does. We're not endorsing any politician.
No.
But and by the way, if you, if I was going through my briefcase the other day, and I found at the bottom about 4 or 5, a small handful of Charter for Compassion pins. If you send me your address, I will mail you a pin. They're lovely. They're really beautifully made pins. So thank you, Brenda. So flowing into moving from the water is flowing now to you, Sara, and it's such an honor to introduce you. But I'm going to introduce you ever so briefly because, you know, we come to learn about really who you are and what you do through how you would like to present. But I want to let you all know that I met Sara, I think it was 2 years ago in New York City at the Commission on the Status of Women in Circle. And then we took a nice walk to Union Station, I think, or no, Grand Central Station. And I got to know her, and I just fell in love. And either you were just graduated from Union Theological Seminary, no? Or you were graduating, or you had long been graduated, or that's how you heard of it. I just remember Union Theological Seminary, and I know some friends there. And then, but one of the things I love, you said you're a spiritual entrepreneur. And that just stuck in my head. So I just want to introduce you and give you an opportunity to share with us about your work, about your vision, whatever it is you want us to know. But perhaps you can tell us what led you on your journey. Can we start with that? What led you on your journey into addressing climate change? Like what was your threshold? What woke you up to doing this work? And the floor is yours. We can all mute ourselves perhaps too. Oh, you're muted. Or we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. That's a really beautiful question, so I appreciate it. So first, I just want to say, like, there are so many things that when you were mentioning, when everyone was doing their introductions, which I really appreciate because it always helps me to know who you are better. I feel like there was at least one thing everyone said that I felt that I could identify with, or yeah, that I resonated with. I was like, oh, I do something like that. So that was nice. I'm currently here on the historical homeland of the Lenape people in the Bronx in New York City. And I'm from the historical homeland of the Ohlone people in the Bay Area in California, where we don't have the 4 seasons. We have the wet season and the dry season, or the green season and the golden season, as we Californians like to think of it. And my ancestors came to this continent in 1635, and I had the fortune when I was in my 20s to spend a fair amount of time in England, where my ancestors, I used to live in England, where my ancestors were from. I did not know then how important that time would be that I was able to connect with my ancestral homeland. At that point, I was working at the Institute of Development Studies, the University of Sussex, in climate change adaptation and responses to global crises, food, fuel, finance, etc. And reimagining development. What would it look like to have new development paradigms? And I had, in my 20s, I was very deeply spiritual. I knew that was my path. And I was always frustrated that there wasn't, in the secular spaces of development in which I worked, there wasn't like room for those conversations. And I'm sure at least 1 or 2 of you can identify with that challenge. And But that is not where things started. I mean, it is, because there is no one beginning, right? There's always multiple origin points to everything. And there's always circles upon circles and spirals upon spirals that intersect and inform each other. And that is the great rub of life, is our blessing and our gift, and it's also our challenge. So I'm just going to put in the chat like some basic, some websites. The first one's my main course. The second one is my company's, which is also a community, a spiritual community. I just learned this morning, realized that my main website is like massively problematic right now. So some things happened to it. I don't know what, which is like bad, because it means I had to go fix it. And I just want to encourage anyone to please feel free to reach out to me by email if there's anything you want to continue with the conversation. So I'm just listening to what needs to be said in this moment. You know, we're all called to this deep love. And I think that love awakens in us and pulls us forward and summons us, calls us, invites us. And the path is full of miracles. The path is full of miracles. And to take the path well, for me, has meant to integrate, has been a process of integration with what is often the things that people don't want to talk about. And when I was like 7 or 8 years old, out on the hills of California, where the owl sweeps in the evening sun, and you can hear the coyotes in the distance, or sometimes not, more close these days. They're coming closer to the houses these days. I was having some there was some stuff going on in my house. I now have words for it, but I did not have words at the time. And it was ugly. And in that moment, I was staring up at the moon, and I found myself completely giving myself over to her. And it would be many years before I would have words like the divine feminine. And it would be a long time before I began to kind of, give language to that moment. But I've been dedicating myself to I could say being of service and being faithful too, which is true. But it's also just letting her be my source, right? It's not just me bowing down, which is also part of it. It's not just submission, but also a sense of like a source coming from within, just to give me that strength that at that point I was not able to. It was unsafe for me to have in my home situation. And so on some level, the path that I'm on now began with that sort of commitment. And on some level, the path that I'm on now began long before I was born, and many, many generations before I came. Just like for many of you, it started many generations before you were born. And it started when my ancestors left England and came to this continent and did not know how to act in compassion and thought that they did. And they had the belief that the way in which they treated the people of this country was compassionate. They thought that they were doing what the Bible told them to do. And And it's not only that people were killed, and it's not only that a way of life was rendered unimportant, and that a people were told that they were less than fully human, all of which happened, as you know. It's that my ancestors lost a part of themselves in the process. And the ecosystem, the elements, the water, the earth, the fire, the air, the great spirit that holds and runs through all of them, were put into a process of systematic destruction and systematic suppression, and the inability for those elements to give forth life. And it is a nature of elements that they are both the source of life and the source of destruction. That's water can destroy and water can save. Water is life and water is also death. That's in every element is like that. Air is life and air is death. Anything can be like that. And truthfully, most of human, the hand is, I'm a healer. I do one-on-one healing with people. I'm doing it since I was 8. The hands can, I used to work in a prison. I used to work in Rikers Island, and I was a chaplain. And like the hands can give life, right? They can heal, and they can just take away life. And anyone who knows anything about acupressure or martial arts or anything, that it's the same point. It's just how hard do you push, right? So all of us have these, the path of good and evil runs through every human heart. We know that. But like, what does it mean to enable us to really choose, not just choose, but to let compassion inevitably come through all of our actions? So it's not even a choice. It's not even something you think about, but it's just a way of being. It requires a deep listening. And I find, I've had the incredible, I can now say that the goddess took me on a whirlwind around the world, from Kenya to England to India and I've, now here in New York, and who knows where she'll take me next. And I've been able to go deep with and work in each of those places, and go deeply with communities, and with farmers and engineers and nurses and healing practitioners, about what does it mean to bring the body back together again, to re-enchant, to take away what Max Weber would refer to as a disenchantment that is inherent in the Industrial Revolution. Except the thing is, this problem doesn't stem only from the Industrial Revolution. What I find is that historically, it's very helpful to stem this problem from the beginnings of colonization. Now, this does not mean, now origin points, as I say, there's multiple origin points. Obviously, patriarchy and empire have existed for thousands and thousands of years. And the memory of the time when women ruled, when women brought systems of compassion into their lives is a distant memory. And those archaeological evidence, we know it happened. We know that there was a time when that was true. But I find that it's so far back in our memories that for most of us who are not particularly good at remembering, is actually a little bit too far. And we can access it through all sorts of, shamanic dream time or whatever. Like, there's many ways of accessing that knowledge. I'm not saying we can't access it. But I find it, in terms of understanding the current crises that we are in, and in terms of helping people undo the damage that has been done, and figuring out what does it mean to rejoin in a way that can enable that compassionate flow to flow freely, and to not repeat some of the abuses that my ancestors have perpetuated in the name of goodness. It's the colonial history is extremely helpful. And and like the healing of that historical trauma, which of course is about, that it incorporates anti-racism work, it incorporates gender and everything, is like extremely valuable. And ecofeminism and eco-spirituality can all kind of help point to this, because the destruction of the environment and the destruction of women is part and parcel of the same thing. I'm seeing a lot of nods, so I'm kind of guessing most of you have thought about this, at least some. And it's very easy to not incorporate, it's very easy, particularly for white folk, to not incorporate the colonial piece to that, and to just focus on the feminine, and to just focus on the earth, and to not really bring in the racial and the colonial and the deep subjugation. And the problem is that when we don't really let ourselves look at some of the deeper subjugation periods and how that happened, we miss the ways in which our institutions are continuing to create them today. And then we create new solutions and actually end up wasting a lot of valuable time. And we don't have time. We have 12 years until the tipping point with the oceans and the coral reefs is done. 12 years. So like I'm teaching a class on climate change adaptation, which includes a lot of re-enchanting, because that's super important. And, I had everyone introduce themselves and who are their children, even though the children weren't in the room, to invoke the ancestors and the future generations. And everyone ended up saying how old their children would be in 12 years, which was actually like a really helpful, like touchstone, For some reason, it sounds worse when you're talking about kids than when you're talking about yourself. I don't know why. It's like, I think we discount ourselves sometimes in that way. So I look at the history of slavery, the history of the witch hunts and the European witch hunts, and the history of the destruction of America as these 3 points of a triangle of terror that all happened within a 50-year period, and all came about through a theological gesture. There were papal bulls that had all 3 of those things happen. And then I help to show people and to bring people through a historical time journey in which they trace their own ancestors and their own family history through the impact that has had throughout. Particularly, I focus on the U.S. because that's the country where I am based. I've had people from India and people from other countries go through this journey with me, and they always say like, "Oh my God, that's what happened here. That's what happened here. That's what happened here," because the U.S. is the first country that was fully colonized. And so the patterns that came in the U.S., and then because the U.S. became, very much a global superpower. And so that combination, sets the stage. And that includes, by colonize, I mean the way nature is conceived, the way women are treated, the way the water is treated, the way in which men are treated, and the way in which men come to see their own power, right? And the way in which women come to see their own power. And that relationship. All of those things are part of, and it happens in institutions, in structures, in the physical, like the ways in which the roads are constructed, the physical layout of our cities. All of that comes from this overarching gesture. And the impact has been on particularly on women's sensuality and sexuality. Like the impact on women, like the deeper I go into this material and the deeper I work with women and men, and the impact that has had on men's sensuality and men's sexuality, like completely changes the eros, the erotic. And that is core to our power, and it's core to our capacity to create. Erotic power is a power, stems from our capacity to be creative beings in this world. We are nothing if we're always creative. Like, it's kind of like, where is that energy going? It's not, oh, are you being creative? No, well, a lot of people, like, to wake up every day and to eat food is a creative act, as far as I'm concerned. But like to have that flow in a way that's like healing, that's a whole nother question. And authentic. And to let authenticity, because our instinct comes in part from our culture. right? Our culture influences our instincts. So you have to go quite deep to help it so that our instincts are well honed. And so it influences our sexuality. One of the things that happened during this period was art and music and rituals were often curtailed or like monotheized, like all made the same, and or taken away. I'm making some very broad generalizations, which is also a problem, but that's just for now. And that this happened in Europe, not only in the Americas and Africa. The Europeans, lost a lot of their rituals, and Europeans lost a lot of their, the way in which they were engaging with the land was shifted and changed, particularly during the witch hunts and the growth of was often referred to as pre-capitalist, early pre-capitalist societies. And the role of music shifted and changed. And music became more of a performance and less of a participatory activity. And over time, over a long time, that kind of led a lot of folks to not thinking they could sing, right? To not think that they themselves could make music, that they had to be some sort of professionally trained person. And they lost their musical voice. And they lost and this is true for men and women, and they lost their ability to dance in circles together. And they lost their ability to, like, these things that we have often are seen as not very important, but are actually how humans know, the way in which research and knowledge and learning happens. Like, inherently, it's happening through, like, we are more than our minds. We are our bodies. We learn through our bodies. We learn through rituals. We learn through dances. We learn through music. And so when that is curtailed, and the educational system today makes it so that it's very hard for people to really engage with those parts of themselves. And, I'm sure all of you have struggled with the funding cuts that have consistently happened for kids to not have musical education, right? All of that can be traced to all these things, which are often seen as disconnected and often seen as like separate things that we should treat separately, are all source of a particular type of incompassion. If passion and compassion is that life, is part of that life force that flows in and between all beings. And, I think it's so important in these processes that we not overly hold up or put anyone on a pedestal too much, right? Let's not put any indigenous elder, let's not put any witch from Europe on a pedestal too much, because pedestals always crumble. And we're all just human. It takes away our capacity to be human together. And that is where our organizing and our political action and all those things which are so critical and so need to happen. And so what I find is that by supporting people and going through history and through the process of re-enchanting, is that there's a physical and somatic experience of people remembering, it's like their body comes back to themselves. And so I want to not speak anymore, because I feel like I've said something, and that's probably enough for right now. And we're kind of getting towards the close of this time. But so I'm just really curious, actually, what I'd like to do, if it's okay, if I just like to invite everyone to just sort of sit for a second and just let whatever images or resonated with you or whatever came up for you, just sort of let yourself be with it. And I'm going to play you a little song. It'll hopefully still give you a few minutes to ask questions or whatever. So, you know, the floor is open to whatever you wish to share.
Sara, let me thank you. I feel like what you just offered was a beautiful prayer. For me, what you just, from when you began to talk to us or talk with us, it felt like a beautiful prayer, and it elevated my soul, and I want to thank you. And I've got so many notes and things that just were aha moments for me, and particularly the Mayflower connection and going back to the beginnings of our country and the conditions that we've constructed and deconstructed through the path. And 2020 is also the 400th anniversary of the people landing at Plymouth Rock. And there is a kind of a movement, a body of work now that we're now turning the tide. We are now returning to that awareness and that reconnection to what we were before. And so I think you're quite timely to have been born into this time. So thank you, and may your message go from ear to ear, from strength to strength. And I'll just share, and then I'll be quiet so everyone else can contribute. When you played your flute, immediately I was brought back to that circle of fire that Namrata led us into and back out of. And I immediately got this beautiful smoke drifting up, and that was lifting up the veil of this illusion that has been laid upon us through the colonization and all those conditions that you shared with us. And for me, that's what happened to me. And the re-enchantment is necessary for re-sacralizing. You know, become enchanted with this new understanding and this old understanding, remembering the enchanting parts of who we are and what we're doing here, as well as sacralizing it, coming back into the sacred with it, in our relationship with ourselves, our bodies, and our planet that we share healthy with. So I'm complete. Thank you. Thank you is insufficient. Thank you. Yeah.
Very beautiful, Sara. Thank you for bringing your presence to us and the world, the work you're doing. To remember is really important. Touch deep within me, because there's just so much that's been torn apart. And I think that's why I was called to have a school for 18 years for children, where they got to connect with who they are. And so that, because we are all innately curious, we're all innately artists, dancers, singers, all of that is within us all. And the way that it has been created in this form that it is now is really takes away everyone's sacred power. And they don't even know it. They think it's normal. And, so I've always been kind of the oddball in there, feeling what I know to be true, that I know is important for our societies. So we do what we can do, and thank you so much for what you're doing. I looked at your course. I'd love to take your course. I'm supposed to get in connection with my ancestry, my great-grandmother. Haven't known how to go about it, and maybe that's a way for me with you. Thanks. And the flute helped me to get out of the depth where I was headed. So thank you for lightening it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Please, feel free to email me. Clay. You're muted.
My apologies. I got pulled off to the side for the last 5 minutes, so I lost track of where we were.
Lucky you, I was recording everything. Or we still are, actually, so you can make up for it.
My wife is headed out to Wimberley, a small town about an hour away, to spend a day and a half with their girlfriends. So they'll be camping out tonight. So I have to pack her up.
You know, there was something that you said also that perhaps, and I kept thinking about Nancy. Nancy is, I'm so inspired by Nancy's work in the world and in our country particularly, in getting things done, in creating that measurable, impactful healing, right? Getting laws passed, walking into senators' offices, writing bills. I mean, I know I'm discounting the work that you do, and I don't mean disrespect, because I honestly don't. I can't fathom everything, and I don't know. We're actually new friends. However, I have a question, and that is, it feels to me, and this is what I love about the Charter for Compassion, it's what I love about you ambassadors and these calls, is we all come through these different doorways. We're all out in the world doing different things at different levels, at the sublime spiritual, moving the energy level, to changing actual laws and making healthcare accessible, and pulling, people up on their feet and off of the streets, and restorative justice in the prison systems and things like that. Everybody's doing such important work out there and bringing women into circles, and it's a whole spectrum. That's what I love about the Charter. It's a container for the whole spectrum of compassion in the world. So it's something that's always frustrating for me, because as we're doing this work, I don't get frustrated by the work you all do. I get frustrated by myself, wondering, how do I know that I'm really creating sustainable change? How do I know I'm supposed to be doing that? That's really for the betterment. Because my idea of creating sustainable change may not be the same as yours. And are we working together? For me, that's why I focus on women and girls and water, is because those are the two undeniable life forces on the planet. You can't live without either one. You can't be birthed into the world, and you can't survive without water and women. So, yet, I don't know if that's a fair question. How do because you spoke a lot about, there's so much of this, but are we really making change? How do you really get to the healing? Are we just, you know what I'm asking? I'm not really sure how to articulate it.
I think it's a really important question. I think it's a really difficult question. And it's also like, there's a weird, I think there's like, it's a paradox. I think, to me, like the real question is, like, in some ways we don't know what's really going to, quote unquote, do it. I think there's a certain humility that we need to have. Yeah. And I say that in part because I just, in looking historically, how many people really thought they were doing the right thing.
Exactly.
Like they really thought they were doing the right thing. And I come from a Quaker lineage, and Quaker history is full of this bizarre combination of cutting edge social justice change and stuff that we look back now, we're like, oh my God, we did what? Like,
they really thought they were doing the right thing, right?
Like they ran boarding schools, residential schools for Native communities, and forced everyone to cut off their hair and speak a different language. And we're perpetuating the American progress model, right? Just like most other religious communities at that time. And they fought for nature rights, and at the same time perpetuated a system of property ownership and banking and finance that destroyed nature. So like how what do you do? So I think partly being with people who are different from you is helpful. I think being with diversity really, really helps, so you can get different perspectives. I think that really letting ourselves, to me, the question is less what's going to make a biggest difference so much as like, what am I being called to do? And how can I be faithful to that? And what is the eldering that I need, to use a Quaker term? What is the eldering that I need to be faithful to that when I'm scared? So I'm doing more work now with, I used to do more policy stuff. I'm doing less of that right now. I used to do more. I'm now working more with wealthier communities, which is hard as hell. And I've been asked to lead some men's groups, which is really interesting. Like, so there's, there's some, we'll see where that goes. There's like, where are we being asked? Where is Spirit leading us? And then making sure we're in conversation with others who can help us ask that question. Like, I think not taking that question lightly and continuing to ask it. And sometimes you're supposed to be in a particular space, right? Like, right now I know I'm very clear that what I'm doing. And yet even within that, like, part of my commitment is that if I find that what I'm doing is really wrong, that I will stop. Which, by the way, like, I mean, maybe I won't be able to do that, but I hope I'm able to do that. Like, I put some things in place to help that process. And then I think just also some basic systems analysis is also really helpful.
And that reminds me of something that we've learned about in compassion integrity training through Life University about being heedingness, being thoughtful and being aware that we don't know, and being thoughtful about another perspective. Or in this particular case, it's being thoughtful of the impact of our actions and our words on another. Yet it also could and does mean being thoughtful of that which we may not know and being aware of that. And that takes a lot of practice, like Brenda said. We don't know. We just kind of are in a groove. And unless we intentionally work to come out and look around of that groove, I mean, that's something that, again, I bring this back to the charter. For me, that's what the charter does, is it provides that platform for us to meet people at different levels doing different things. And as an interfaith activist, I really appreciate what you said. And circle too. Yeah.
Yeah, the circle is really important. And making sure that that's, so, I live in a primarily, like, I've chosen to live with people who do not look or talk or sound like me. And I'm very conscious about that. And I have elders who do not look and talk and sound like me. And I have from multiple parts of the world, and who push me and who don't, who push me. And sometimes they're pushing me to make more money, right? Sometimes they're saying, actually, Sarah, stop pretending that you don't need to make a living. Like, this is bullshit. This is part of the problem. You need to create a new system for making a living, do that. But like, don't pretend that your needs don't matter. Like don't go the other side of the spectrum, right? Of acting like you're nothing, because that's also bullshit. Mm-hmm. That's not compassion, genuine. Because what happens then? I get sick, and who has to take care of me then? How, like, it's just bullshit, right? So, like, even without going into a prosperity gospel, right? So like, finding those in between spaces. And again, like, I think, so for me, I've done a lot of analysis in terms of focusing on this stuff, focusing on deep cultural change, and I know some of my gifts. I'm naturally very, very good at very deep work. I'm not so good at some other stuff. I'm not, yeah, like deep work I can do. So.
I feel that the compassion work is so important because so many people don't understand what compassion is. And we get to do the work. We are in the work all the time with our own selves and with others. And I feel that what I've recognized in a lot of our society is we live in well, this is an understatement, but we live in such an aggressive, assertive, headstrong society, and everybody's in their heads and they're all about the finished product and the end game, and they don't consider the individuals. And I work in the health profession now teaching meditation and yoga, and I think it's just a travesty the way I see these doctors treat themselves, and they are not walking their talk at all. And it's not just the doctors, it's the whole medical staff, it's the whole system. And it's not the only system, as we know. You know, it's like all the systems, the school system, you know, separating children from who they really are and having somebody in front of them, you know, making them not trust themselves. Because it all comes down to trusting yourself. What you were saying, Sara, is, you know, tuning into what's, you know, what am I meant to do? And most people don't have a clue because it doesn't fit the constructs of the outside society. You know, how do you fit in? And you got to do what they tell you to do because that's the way it's made. It's the way it's created. And if you don't do that. So we have all these people, too, that go into university and colleges and they spend tons of money. And they walk out and they have these degrees and they don't have a job to go. I mean, it's so illogical. And they all think they're being logical. That's what is
and they're getting rewarded.
All the time. And so we had a conversation the other day, my business partner and I, and we were talking about a situation. And I said, you know, I am really tired of celebrating people overcoming suffering. It's rewarded, which means on the other side of that, then we must suffer to get attention and to be heard. And it's like, really? That makes no sense to me, because how about we just let go of that? We weren't born to suffer. How about we love each other, and how about we accept each other? And your strengths, like, you know, Sandy was saying, because that uniqueness actually creates harmony within life. And so so what I am doing personally is, how do I help myself clear the traps that are caught inside me? And so anytime, you know, I get offended, I get to feel inside to where those fences are and walls inside of me, and breathe in and start clearing those. And as I'm able to do that, then I can also be in that compassion with another, holding space, open to hear another point of view. If I'm defending myself all the time because of, you know, my collection of fear, I'm gonna be trapped for the rest of my life. So bottom line for me, if I'm being motivated by fear, it's the wrong answer. If I'm in confusion, it's the wrong answer. When it's clear, that's the next step. And a lot of people don't want to wait for me to be clear. Yeah, okay. They go on their trod to the human race, and there's no finish line. And, you know, I'm going to continue to be. So it's not a stubbornness, it's a willingness to be in that presence. And, you know, you just look at our words all the time and say, this is the wholeness of who we are. That is the Holy Spirit, each one of us. Well, thank you for bringing, each of you, your wholeness to this table for us to learn from each other.
Yeah, and I thank you, Brenda. And speaking of listening, I really appreciate, Sara, that you took that time to be really respectful of who you were speaking to now that you knew who we are, because I know you're new to us. Full disclosure, Sarah's not, I don't believe you're a partner of the charter either. So we'd like to.
I thought I was actually, but okay.
Well, it's easy to fix that. Yet you took the time to get to know us and listen carefully to what needed to be said. And I really, really appreciate that. And in our society, that's considered awkward silence. It's like, it's quiet, we're so used to having fill time, and that rhythm is so discounted, and being thoughtful and necessary, and everybody does, like Brenda says, everybody has their own rhythm. And how do we be respectful and heedful of one another's rhythm? And we're starting, speaking of rhythm, we are starting to see people go to work and go to their meetings and go make dinner for their daughter in India. And so perhaps that's a sign that listening carefully to what wants to happen, perhaps we're complete. And good, Clay's back.
I'll just say one quick.
Yeah, I'd love to invite you to sing us out, actually. But say what you want to say and then sing us out, maybe.
I just want to check to see if either Greta or Clay want to say anything.
Sure.
Drive, Clay, drive. I think one more thing I might just add is just like, so I'm fortunate that I come from a very deep spiritual tradition, and that I have been able to work with a lot of very deep spiritual folks, which has has strengthened me a great deal. But the history has also strengthened me, because knowing this history has also helped me make better decisions at a micro level as well as a macro level. So at this point, I can pretty much assess almost anything from a decision around, like, do I have more silence in a meeting, or do we have more talking, or do we have more music, right? To is this policy perpetuating systems of colonial heritage, or is it not? To, like, are these medical fields, how radical are they being, and what's the impact of their lack of radicalness? I can make those assessments pretty fast. And some of that's just part of my gifts, right? But some of that's because I can see the patterns now. And being able to see the history, and unfortunately, like, I mean, I don't think it's a fast pass, but like being able to recognize the patterns enables, I think that's a really important skill for network keepers. And I know many people on this call have multiple networks that they're guarding and that they're cultivating. And I think that as network keepers and people who are enabling networks to grow, being able to recognize patterns, which are the patterns that are enabling the ecosystems to develop, that can enable us to grow, to grow closer to that which will sustain life versus that which will further destruct it. And having, where are our roles, where are our boundaries, and be able to kind of see where the boundaries fall for any given network, because no one can do everything. Like that skill is deeply supported by both by pattern recognition, and pattern recognition comes in part through a multi-perspective history, by which I mean you're seeing history through multiple lenses, not just whatever your parents taught you. So like that's like I think that this question of, like, because I think the question of how do we support networks to not, I don't want to use the word achieve, but to to actually, be Indira's web, right? To actually catch and to grow the net is something that it's not just a question of having calls and an email list, right? Or gatherings or a conference. It's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And you all know that. It's so much more than to simply do the convening work, which is like, if you don't do the convening work, nothing else will happen, right? You have to do the convening work. And the convening work takes so much time and it's so frequently unpaid, which pisses me off. And and it's hard, and it's labor that often falls to women, but it often falls to people who are not on the top of whatever chain you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important that just convening. And then once the convening is happening, how do you enable structure to develop that will enable a new system to arise?
Bam. Bam. It's a constellation that I see, you know, this IntersNet that you're talking about, and the conditions, and there's been some study on this, obviously, and I'm sure you know about that. Hospitality, generosity, being complimenters, you know, it's in that generosity of providing, of allowing space and honoring the planetary system. That's, you know, just how I see it. Different planets move in different directions, they spin on different axes, they move at different paces, they're different sizes. Some have a whole planetary system revolving around them, but they still fit into the constellation of the universe. And it's that hospitality, and that's the air between us. And in that hospitality, there is no greed. There's no unhealthy ego, right? There's no fear.
Yeah, I love that. I love this. I mean, I love this phrase, like, hospitality is the air we breathe. Like, you know, in a climate change world, it sure as hell better be. Like, because we need hospitality right now.
I have a question. This is Greta.
Yeah,
I'm finally on mute. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you. This is amazing. It's fascinating, and it is deep. It's definitely deep. But I would like to follow up with Sara. And what I want to learn a little bit more is about how are we perpetrating that conjugating people, subjecting people to maybe our thoughts or what we think is right. And the reason that I'm very interested for that is because being from the Western world and feeling so much compassion toward people who live in the Middle East, I wonder whether that compassion is really needed. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. I want to just follow up with you, if I could, via email.
Yeah.
And maybe connect later on.
Yeah, I mean, please do. I feel like in order to me to answer that question, I think you're asking a kind of a specific question, not a general question, actually. And I need to know more context otherwise I feel like what I'm going to say is not going to be helpful. So
I agree. I'll follow up with you, but thank you so much for opening this door. This is amazing.
I mean, these are huge questions. It's very important that, like, should not fall for the least common denominator, and to strive for the excellence that we are called to. Right? We are called into, like, to the elevation. So, like, that's part of what I think the process of cultivating networks that can be very powerful is about, in part, going beyond the least common denominator. And focusing on the elevation. I mean, the word there's a whole bunch of stuff around elevation that's a problematic word, but deepening might even be better. But, you know, like I don't want to get into some of the progress-based thinking, right? Like I don't want to get into some of that kind of, because that's been so problematic. But yeah, so I just want to put that out there to like, to invite ourselves to be inquiring into how do we really create, because there's some shape shifting of networks that's going to need to happen, and the networks are going to have to be shifted, like to help the ecosystem grow effectively. Like there's some actual structural support, or like there's some tending that's needed, and that has to do with enabling connections to happen in ways that, like, yeah, anyway. So for example, one of my partners, this is actually in India, but it could have been anywhere in the world, was recently, he's building an an ecosystem for sustainability. There was the government wanted to work with an academic institution. He knew the academic people in the academic. He knew that he knew both institutions, so he was connecting them. He said he not only connected them, but he said, look, when you go to these people, when you, the government, go to this academic institution, you have to ask them. They don't care about whether or not they have their name on your badge. They care about what's their expertise that you're going to use. Like, how are they going to, so how is it that academic institutions think versus how do governments think? They think very differently. They think, and they have very different purposes. What makes them function is very different. Why they are functioning is very different. So it's like how to help those two groups. These are institutions. This is different for individuals, okay? But for institutions, how to help these two institutions actually join in a way that, like, well, both of them will agree to and move forward on a common goal quickly. You had to understand some of the history, and you had to understand how is it that they can communicate better. So you had to kind of know both pieces, right? So that's a particular type of net building, which enables them to hear each other better. Which if you had just given, he's like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, that would not have done it. That might not have worked, because he might have requested in a way that would have been, he wouldn't have known how to frame the request, and it would have fallen, there would have been another to-do list, right? So,
Sarah, you remind me of an article I read in a philosophy I believe strongly in, and I think is necessary to heal our world, actually, is an article by Social Innovation Review on social impact. Collective impact, and how critical it is that we keep lines of communication. As a matter of fact, engage those who are doing different things from different areas and engage with them, and that it's a little bit of a stretch from what you're saying, but you reminded me of that. I think it's really very important that we heed your wisdom here. With our time that we have left, which is 3 minutes, I think that Brenda has a really great idea that I'm not even gonna. That I think is really a no-brainer for me, and that is a webinar with you, Sarah, on our 2020 campaign. And with Nancy, you guys seem to bring those really unique energies to the table, and can meet there at that conversation. I suppose that's what you're saying. Sorry, Brenda, I just felt very compelled. Spirit pulled that right out of me. I didn't have any control over that. So thank you. We're going to be talking about that if you would like to do that.
I don't fully understand what you just said, but I think the answer is probably yes.
Then you're doing okay, because sometimes I don't make sense. But what I guess I'm trying to say is we can provide a webinar to have you come and speak with Nancy, who you heard briefly from earlier, who introduced herself. She's in New York doing work at a policy level as well, and you both are coming from different energies to accomplish the healing for our planet. in a really powerful way. But I think you both also are speaking a common language too. So we can talk more about that. But that was an idea that Brenda.
Give an appreciation shout out to Clay. I think I've been appreciating watching him going from place to place and trying to keep this conversation listening throughout the way. I think that's like not easy. So
Yeah, I just sent him a message on that. You read my mind.
Well, I would like to offer something. You mentioned something about being involved with men's groups, and I would like to learn more about that separately from this call.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can get together, and Sandy, if I get emails, and we can connect that way.
Yep. My email's in the chat, and I'm very happy to talk about it. It's, as I mentioned to you, it's a little bit new, but it's a huge honor.
I've just put mensfellowship.net in the website, in the chat window. And then Clay, and do I have everyone's permission to share your contact with Sarah? Or Sarah's already done it here.
I already put it up on the website, but please feel free to share. I mean, I also would say, Clay, I was looking at the New Story Festival, and I'm like really impressed with how many different groups you have involved.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And Sandy, put clayboykin.com up there on the on there as well, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. It's done.
There's actually, I have a friend of mine who actually, I was going to say he's based out of Texas, and he does men's retreats, but he might not be based out of Texas. But he's cool. You know, there's more and more. I've always, like, as a healer, I've always worked as much, if not more, with men than women, which has, some of that's because I'm physically, you can't really tell, but I'm physically very tall and strong and broad, and I have my father's frame. And I have a strong kind of warrior goddess thing going on. So men they think that I'm strong enough to like beat up their bodies in a good way. And yeah, I've long really, because of that, I've learned a lot from that experience. Like I was often like one of the only people, if not the only person, where they receive physical touch. And I feel like that is how I started seeing a lot of the damage that's been done to men, and the way in which they hold it in their bodies, and the way in which the protective provider, which is like the greatest thing ever, like has been so warped. And it pains me. Like the more I came to realize that, the more I came to see how much in ways that they that hurt women. Right?
Yeah. Well, certainly men and women are wounded by the male patriarchy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here, for hanging out, for Sarah, for your deep spiritual wisdom. I really appreciate it on behalf of the charter and personally. So thank you. I've learned a lot today, and thank you for blessing us. And now this is recorded, and so you'll all be getting a copy of the recording. I'm going to also be sending it far and wide and encouraging everybody to listen to it, not just to meet you all again, those of you who are on the call, but to make sure they sit quietly and listen to your wisdom, Sarah. It's an important message, so I want to thank you for that.